the entire game. So, I mean, if he can just get over that, I really feel like he can take on Cure.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're going to be starting here on Death Aura for game number 1 on top of the blue Terran player. He is going to be representing Team Dragon Phoenix Gaming. He is Cure.
And to the bottom right, as the red Protoss repping that ting, he is Neeb.
You know, Zombie Grub, I feel like exactly what you were saying. You know, Neeb sometimes does seem like he struggles in closing out those games, or like he gets to a good position. I know we've talked about that to death, right? I know I've been saying it over and over and over again. But I think one thing that does still give me hope, and I think confidence, kind of like you were saying, in Neeb's performance is, one, his PvT usually does look really good, and two, his other matchups actually were looking pretty good. Like, he played versus Ragnarok, and yes, he lost there, but his PvZ was looking good. His PvP versus Parting was looking good. So as we hop into like the only PvT he has to play, which is already a matchup I have some confidence in for him, his other matchups are just going to be versus Rogue and Stats. So if he can make this work, if he can make this matchup work, I actually think he still does have a shot at, you know, going 3-0 from here.
Yeah, he could. And as I was saying earlier, it just feels like anything can happen in IEM, as it did yesterday and even on Monday. So yeah, it's possible, but I think we all are in agreement that for Neeb, we kind of want him to win, you know, like the NA representation, us being both from America, and you know, he's just like a lovable guy, all that good stuff, but he just falters at the last second. He gets to the finish line and then trips. So he's got to be fixing that. But Cure, not so much, you know, like if he's not going to falter at the finish line, but he might be a little bit slower than the rest of the guys, right? Like he just might not be as good. But if he is as good or better, then he kind of just stays with it. So a bit more dependable, I would say, for Cure. And in this matchup, he's actually even been some of the best TVP in the past. I feel like everyone's had their moments, but Cure has had so many moments, especially online, that don't translate into offline, which again, this is not, but we're kind of going with the story of it being, you know, the biggest events, it's Katowice, so it kind of has the offline feeling. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we did have the opening over here where Cure did go for an engineering bay block, was able to get Neeb to take his third base instead of his natural, so kind of mild annoyance there for Neeb. Has to move his workers over there, it takes a little bit longer, but there's also a Hellion opening, so this is actually going to pair really nicely with the engineering bay block because a lot of Protoss players like to go for those walls with their natural, especially on a map like this, and you don't really get to do that if you took your third instead of your natural.
Exactly. Now, this is something that Protoss players have kind of gotten used to. It had a big blip, you know, on the PvT radar to do this opener when, you know, Bjorn came back. He was doing it. I remember it was Bjorn versus Parting, actually, I think, where it just seemed like Parting was trying to handle it and quite couldn't. And then he adapted, he learned, and then later on he was fine against it. But it's something that you have to be wary of. So Neeb scouting for those Hellions, seeing if the reactor is still on the factory, has missed them, unfortunately. So he won't have units right on top of them, but he has opted for a Stargate. If the Phoenix was out, it could lift one of these Hellions. It is out here. The second one not quite yet, but all he really needed to do was take away any amount of damage with a shield battery included. The Hellions are never going to one-shot anyways.
Yeah, nicely defended over there for Neeb, because like you were saying, just you lift up one of the Hellions and take out the damage so they can't one-shot, and just having a shield battery in both mineral lines, I was a little bit, I was wondering about like that forward pylon he had over by the ramp, but I guess it was gonna still just provide that vision, and everything actually works out pretty well for him. Now, we have the Phoenix opening coming on out, so Neeb kind of gets to pull up his Phoenix and look for little bits of damage that he can try and find here and there, but he is gonna have to be very cautious about that first Widowman that's already out.
It's kind of funny. Cure could have, you know, delved really hard into the Hellions and had 4, so they actually one-shot the probes even with the shield battery, and even with like one Phoenix left, right? But he didn't. He didn't really want to dedicate a lot to it and hope that Neeb didn't respond to the Hellions that, as I was saying, are kind of, you know, they're known to be coming after you block the natural nexus. So in the end, you know, Cure's like, I didn't get anything, that's okay. It was kind of like a scouting maneuver. It was kind of a maneuver that put a lot of pressure on Neeb to defend first, so Cure didn't have to worry about like the adept shenanigans or building a bunker. And now he knows that there are Phoenix. Still having a little bit of trouble defending, of course. They are fast. They already get 2 SCVs, but Now the next step for Cure, I would say, besides doing his push, already working on that sim, already having 2-1-1, is figuring out if it is actually Phoenix Colossus. Now with Neeb, we would expect that. But, you know, sometimes there are Protosses out there going into Phoenix Charge. Oops, it is.
Yeah, nice split there from Neeb at the last second. At least keeps the other Phoenix alive. But losing one Phoenix is going to kind of suck over here since two Phoenix don't really do a whole lot. But like you were saying, the Phoenix Colossus is a really common follow-up. As we see the first Colossus coming on out, but yeah, the Phoenix count isn't exactly going to be that high over here. We'll see how much of an impact they can even have, as this little attack is hitting with Stim well before that first Colossus out. And there's the rest of the Phoenix coming on out.
And that is a bit scary. The Phoenix could be targeted down very easily by these Marines, especially since there's not a whole lot of them. But there is a shield battery. We knew that from the earlier attack.
That is abusive.
Second one. Oh, that's really clever. That's really nice. If he's going to try and chase after the Medivacs, hoping he's not paying attention, the Widowmine's going to bop him.
Yeah, all right. Well, the drop is going to be coming on in from the backside at the same time that he scans and tries to move on forward. We'll see whether or not Neeb is going to be paying attention. Colossus and a few Zealots over at the natural expansion could react to this. He's not. All right, he's pulling the probes. Doesn't lose too much. Actually, only loses one probe over there, but the drop in the main, looking to find a bit more damage. No, Neeb is on top of it.
Yeah, so far so good for Neeb Fence. He accidentally could have had, you know, things in the wrong location, but it's doing totally fine right now. And the Colossus #1 already out, Colossus #2 on the way. Extended Thermalance as well, moving on into that charge. I mean, things are looking good for Neeb.
Yeah, snipe off on the medevac is also really, really nice, because now it's like, okay, you didn't just lose the Widowmines and a few Marines, which, you know, acceptable losses. Losing the medevacs is something you really don't want to have happen, but it's kind of the nature of the game when you're playing against the Phoenix, and the Protoss player is able to keep those Phoenix alive during that early harassment. So we see that Cure is moving out with yet another force on that left-hand side, but he was already establishing some pylons to potentially take a fourth base right now.
Very safe defensive play. What we expected from Neeb, but just it's actually working very well. Shield batteries have come into play a little bit here and there, so not, you know, total waste of minerals, and they will come back into play later on for drops, and then just good splits, good scouting. It does mean that Cure kind of gets to decide what he wants to do. You know, he's setting up the drops, the potential run-ins, the third, or the natural, you know, stuff like that. But, you know, if he's not going to find any success with it, then it might not matter that you have, you know, map control if Neeb's still working on to his bigger and better armies.
Yeah, and speaking of bigger and better armies, the Temple Archives is already coming on out, and I think that by the time any of these kind of little pushes end up happening over here, Neeb should have Templar Archives done, charge finished up, and maybe even +1 weapons getting very close. Right now, it's just a small squadron pushing forward over here for Cure, but he scans, sees the Colossus with the shield batteries, and he actually just ends up backing off. Even if he tries to go for the drop on the top right, Neeb actually has the big dead airspace covered by the Phoenix.
Not much that Cure can do with the current army he has, but he is going to continue having them out on the map in case a occasion arises, or they might catch like a warp prism or a couple of zealots running by, right, as well. So he's going to keep them out there, but really it's about, you know, kind of the next stage of this matchup. So moving on to more upgrades, more Marauders being added in, and then I mean, I'm surprised if Cure didn't add on any secondary technology such as Ghosts or an additional starport, but he is actually pushing that off a fair bit, and he's going for a very rather fast fourth base instead.
Yeah, that's we'll see how that actually pans out, as I can rely a lot on your micro and your angles for engagements and stuff. If you don't have a lot of the higher tech stuff to try and deal with these armies, well, sometimes you can do what I like to call the old Maru style way, where you just say, I don't need tech, I have better micro and engagements, and I'll still get massive concaves and take out your Colossus from just a straight up Bioforce. So it's going to be very reliant on Cure's abilities here.
It's difficult to do, especially on a map like Death Aura, though. You know, like how you can't really... You can get a concave, but on top of the entire Protoss army in front of shield batteries, you know, like it's gonna be difficult to actually do a whole lot of damage. Speaking of damage, a couple of depths from earlier on coming in here, grabbing 5 SCVs, finally getting cleaned up, but not too bad. Cure is finally moving on to Ghosts, as well as that second starport, as a Widowmine detects the army movement, which actually gives the go-ahead for Cure's triple drop to maybe hit that natural. He's actually going to be patient with it. He's setting up for 2 attacks.
Yeah, he's looking for it, but man, it's going to be so tough because the Phoenix are still there. He scans and does catch wind of those Phoenix covering that dead airspace, but even when he scanned the army, he saw that the army for Neeb was actually retreating back to that fourth. So now the Widowmine's going to reveal that the army is moving out yet again. That gives him the trigger moment and says, all right, here we go. Not really finding any workers just yet, but he's going to try and go for another drop inside the natural disruptor. Finding a few Marines, but a large warping of Zealots, and there still hasn't been more than 2 workers that have fallen. Fine, there's SCVs going down right now. There's no probes dying.
Yeah, I was going to say, those are SCVs. Hold on a second. A couple of Zealots and a really random Immortal coming across the map to kill 5 SCVs, while Neeb does handle the drops perfectly fine. Also, the attack into the third not really working out. Cure just losing supply, you know, both on the offense and on the defense. Doesn't look too great after that attack. Neeb very comfortably on 5 bases, adding on his disruptors and moving on to 3-3 upgrades ahead of his opponent, or 3-2, sorry, ahead of his opponent.
Yeah, I mean, the Widow Mines have been getting really juicy connections on Neeb's army constantly as they're spread around the map, but I mean, there's just not enough of an army to actually follow up on it. And man, Zombie Grub, if I wasn't sub-captain of the Neeb club right now, the fan club for him, I would actually be feeling really worried right now for Cure, but Neeb is just looking so strong right now. Every single thing that Cure is doing, I have to say, I'm like, this is a really nice move from Cure. He's setting up the multi-prong harassment. He's getting really good vision. He's doing scans on top of the army, and Neeb still deflects everything left and right.
And he finally has a push. Now, this is a little bit awkward as Cure also has a push over to the bottom left, so it could be a base for a base, potentially. A couple of force fields come down, though, and Disruptors will zone out the rest of the army. Nothing to kill the Vikings. In come the Phoenix now to try and help out. And there is that actually, yeah, base for a base. That's what it looks like it's going to be.
Yeah, 1 base does go down. A handful of probes also falling, but look at all those charge slots warped in. The EMP coming off on the shield battery, but it's already overcharged. Another EMP set comes off on the Zealots, but Neeb is already on the retreat home. He's not even going to use a recall for this. He's actually just going to run back home, try and ambush that little force, because he knows he's already been able to trade base for base, but he's still up a base now.
Exactly, like he knows he's in the better position. His 5th died while Cure's 4th died, so Cure is now lifting his main and landing that down. So Zealots in the future will be very difficult to hold against. DTs will be added on as the Dark Shrine has finished. Phoenix even catching a couple of medevacs. Actually, the medevac's entirely cornered. Not a whole lot of Blink Stalkers, though, as in fact, did he ever get Blink? Like, I'm actually trying to question. It might not matter.
Yeah.
Oh, he did.
Well, the Phoenix
Stalkers.
Well, they're going to find actually every single one of the medevacs almost. 1 medevac does seem to survive and make its way over the main. I don't know if it actually ended up surviving for long, though, as I see the dead carcass of another medevac there. Now, Cure is on the far right-hand side of the map. I do want to note, though, because Neeb didn't end up recalling back home with his army to deal with that last attack, Neeb actually, I think he still might have recall off of cooldown and ready to use if he gets caught out of position again, as Cure was moving around the right, but Neeb is in position yet again.
It's kind of up to Cure, actually, to start another base trade, as right now it doesn't look so good for him. If he just takes the defensive fight, he's down 20 supply, and he's a little split here. A bunch of Zealots going into the natural, you know, diverting his attention while the main fight happens over to the right. Vikings, once again, they're having to try to grab a Colossus. They do not manage to find either one. Disruptors being thrown out, going to actually scare away the Bio Army, and Cure's supply is just in the gutter.
Neeb is actually looking unflappable right now. Zombie Grub, I don't even know what I should tell Cure to do because he's already doing a lot. But Neeb is just handling everything he throws at him. Takes game number 1 and is going to have a really strong start to this series.
Fantastic play from Neeb. Everything defensive worked out for him so well. I kind of feel like Cure, you know, his pacing was off in that game is kind of what it felt like. He had the control of the map, again, control kind of in quotes here, and then was like, oh, I'm not really doing anything, so you know, what do I do now? I think it's a 4th base, and that's fine. And of course, his economy is okay. He's got a 3rd totally saturated. But his movement over into his own Vikings, into his own Ghosts, like really powering up the army, just felt like it was kind of off for how well Neeb was doing defending, right? It kind of felt like maybe Cure should have flipped or swapped into 6th gear. I don't know cars. Anyways, a bit faster, and he didn't. So it just felt like the pacing was off for that game for Cure. He didn't get the momentum that he wanted from any of the initial drops. He didn't really have the best army that he wanted for a head-to-head fight. Even if he did, he didn't see where the Protoss army was coming in from, so it turned awkward anyways.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. And it takes me back to something you were saying much earlier on as well, where he was investing into a lot of this bio and trying to get all this harassment and stuff done without really taking into, like you were saying earlier on in the game, like no Ghost Academy or none of these other things that would normally be helping to deal with Neeb in like a kind of mid-game fight. So do you feel like he kind of just got forced to trying to go for the style with the decisions he was making with his army? Or
yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It felt like Neeb actually in the past with that particular style, one of the weaknesses is that the Terran kind of, identifies it and goes, oh, okay, that's what we're playing. And then moves on to something bigger and better and starts taking good engagements. But I guess Kier just really never had a chance to because he lost track of the army. So, all that, again, quote unquote, map control that he had earlier on didn't even really help him for the rest of the game. So I wouldn't feel happy about that one as Kier. For a couple different reasons, but we'll get into that after the game intros anyways. So we're on Romanticide for game 2, and the top left for team DPG, he is Kier.
And down over here on the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have the red Protoss player leading up the series 1-0. He is Ting's Neeb.
Obviously.
American. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say our American boy in blue, but then I realized he's spawning as red, and I'm like, oh, damn.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it is red, white, and blue, so...
That's true, he is the red player. He's got a blue jersey on, and his play is pristine white. We'll go with that one.
Yeah, we'll go with that one. Yeah. I mean, with this team logo, he actually is red, white, and blue.
Oh, that's true, actually, yeah.
Maybe that's what they're going for. Anyways.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go.
So obviously Kier not happy about that game because he lost it, but I mean you have different feelings about your games, right? Like about your losses as well. So one loss can kind of feel like, oh shucks, okay, he got me, and you kind of chuckle to yourself. There's another loss where you're like, no, I had that game, I'm so mad, rematch that guy, find him on ladder. And then there's games where you just kind of sit back afterwards and you're kind of just like, did I try as hard as I thought I did, during the game? Hold on here. And it's not that, I'm not trying to say that Kier didn't try, but it's one of those times where you look at it and you're like, I just kind of fell behind in pacing, but I know I'm a super fast player. I know I can do all of these things, but this guy's style just, it kept on interrupting that. And that's frustrating to never actually feel like you can do anything against the Protoss player, even though, perhaps you're thinking he's playing slower.
I'm so glad you phrased it that way, because I actually think I used to talk a lot with, I still talk a lot with a lot of the North American players. And funny enough, like that way you described it was kind of like the essence of what it was like to lose to Neeb, especially during his peak in 2017, where he was, winning all the WCS events, and all the NA players who had to play against him were just like, it just sucks because you lose the game and you're just kind of like, there's not some cheeky strategy. It's not like Scarlet, cheesed you out or something, or pulled out some really abusive strategy. It's just like, you just played StarCraft and was really solid, and you're like, what do I do now? What's the adjustment? It's like, okay, cool. I'm going to play better. Like, all right, great. Good luck.
Yeah, that's, another way to put it is just kind of sit back and you're like, did I actually just get outplayed? Like, hold on, no, like that can't be it. Like, no, he definitely did something else. He did trickster.
Yeah.
Not to say that we actually know what Kier is thinking, but it just seemed like a game where he was supposed to have control, and then proceeded to have basically no control, even when he tried his best to do so. So it is frustrating in that sense. Kier is going to really change things up and go for a third CC, hiding it all the way in the corner. Now, if Neeb opens up with the Stargate again, there's not really a way to hide that third CC. But this time around, Neeb not going to do so. Perhaps not doing so. Maybe he did it last game because of Engineering Bay block, wanting a Phoenix to help against the Hellions. Maybe he just does, also do Phoenix Colossus, and that is definitely one of the cases. But this game, Twilight Council. So that third CC is going to go unscouted for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Not going to have the ability to move in too far forward unless the Adept really finds an opportunity, shade around and get deep in. But I think that Kier's been pretty on top of raising those depots, keeping things in check, as most Terran players do. But for now, we'll see what the Reaper's also going to be able to move in and scout over here. He's going to probably be able to get a scout out on that third base being thrown down for Neeb. But it doesn't look like he's going to actually be running into the main base just yet or anything.
Nah, not quite. So he doesn't go with Twilight Council, but the timing of the Stargate's kind of coming and going. Neeb actually did warp in a sentry. Now that might give him a hallucination just, a good time before the observer would come across the map, I think. So that actually might be why he warped it in, because he is getting such limited information. He saw a barracks with a reactor on it, and that's it. Not even like the factory swapped over type situation. So we'll see if he runs across. I mean, his build right now is set up for, as well as it could be, I suppose, against a third CC anyways. He went for a very fast third Nexus himself. He's not really holding off on anything, although maybe the shield battery, that's a bit unnecessary. Now the hallucination is going to see what it wants.
Yeah, when you scout out that third CC as Neeb, if you scout out that third CC as Neeb, is seeing like the later production coming out, is that enough?
I feel like it, yeah, because what do you see the starport, or do you see a barracks? He saw barracks. That's actually a bit odd.
I guess he also saw that like the factory was just now building.
Yeah, he did.
And everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
you're right. The factory was still finishing, so yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think you can kind of figure that one out. He's not going to go overboard on the greed or anything, but adding on the gases quickly here, finally getting a forge and moving on into Colossus. Not sticking with those charge lab blink stalkers much at all.
Yeah, well, when you don't exactly have an add-on on that factory, you might have a lot of these Marauders and everything, but there's no siege tank at least, so Neeb can maybe try and poke around, abuse Blink, but Stim is about to run out, actually, so Neeb turns around, finds a few fights, blinking back the weakened Stalker, and finding a few Marines over there. Really, really excellent micro.
Nicely done. That is certainly one weakness of the, a lot of bio units, which is that, they stim, they look fantastic, they don't stim. They're still missing those medevacs for at least, 20 seconds longer. So abusing what you can with a very limited number of army units, which is good for Neeb. He doesn't really want a ton right now. He wants to supercharge his economy, get perfectly saturated, which he now is, and then, delve into his upgrades, which... that is one of the unfortunate things, is that maybe if he did know this is a third CC, like if an adept had gotten in, totally unnecessarily, maybe he would have changed up his build a little bit here, but his upgrades are not going to be as good. The just sheer size of Cure's army is going to be very intimidating.
Very ballsy blinks over there from Neeb, really, really just playing with fire, and confidence in his micro, I've got to say, to make sure that he's not losing any of those stalkers by only blinking back, the single stalkers that are actually getting attacked or lower on shields. So keeps all of them alive and gets another pick off there, sees that the army is moving out, and even kind of gets an idea of the angle that they're coming in from. So he can position his units to say, like, all right, defend my third base area. The ramp by the natural, probably not where the army's coming in from.
This is one of the scariest moments for the Protoss, They've tried to finish up their economy, and they're now getting to their production, but the production's not quite done. The upgrades aren't quite done. But it looks like Neeb controlling this well enough, has his entire army over to the left, and that was fine for now, but there is another couple of medevacs headed to the right, and that's, like, in just a minute, that's when Cure's going to be bopping between bases, and it's going to be really tough for Neeb to split with a limited army supply.
Yeah, we already see a limited army supply over here, but Cure not going to have enough to actually poke on forward there, so Neeb was able to force that back, but we're going to see the drops coming in on the other side pretty shortly. There's a single Colossus, a cannon, and a shield battery in the natural. For just 2 medevacs, that's actually not too shabby.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's really not. Even another cannon coming down actually spots.
And a few zealots.
Yeah, all right. So far, so good, but it's still definitely not over. If Cure is making sure not to drop unnecessarily into a prepared Neeb, that just means that his next drop could be even bigger, or it could combine forces and then attack him right up the middle, which is also something that Neeb has to be very careful about. So these observers are very important.
Yeah. Really quickly before the action takes place, can we just get a look at the units lost tab? I just want to see how many Marines Neeb has picked off with these Blink Stalkers.
8.
Okay. Like 8 Marines. Yeah, I'm looking at like some of the early aggression, and I'm like, imagine if 8 more Marines are alive for some of these pokes. Oh god. Well, that's getting scouted, but hey, this is some nice damage over here for Cure. Finding the Colossus, gets a pick off over there, gets a Stalker or 2 as well, but the 4th base is going to be pretty safe, and definitely losing some units on the retreat.
Ooh, going into the main base, Glarakon's chasing it around. These 4 medevacs really want to do something. So far, not so good, honestly. They keep on running into this one cannon that keeps killing the medevacs. 2 of them now very weak because of that lone cannon.
Love the very, very edge of the ramp, or the whatever that area there for the cannon. Just because the edge, yes, the edge of the edge.
Yeah, exactly. The edge of the edge.
Gonna be finding a lot of nice damage every single time those medevacs pass over. But another pylon actually spots out this army moving on forward. So Neeb blinks forward aggressively. Force field's in a few units over here. He's gonna back up eventually, but with another Colossus coming out, Cure cannot break from this angle.
Yeah, that was a pretty aggressive blink, but it worked out all right. Even a couple of force fields grabbing more Marauders, cleaning up the Widow Mine. Neeb, it's not the absolute perfect defense. Maybe that last game kind of was, but it's fairly close to it. But Cure is still sharking around with medevacs, still having so much supply to work with. He still has a couple more maneuvers before I think he's really got to think mostly about the main engagements, you know? Mm-hmm. He is adding on the goes. He is getting good upgrades. I like this pacing a lot better for Cure, and this threatening that he's doing a lot better for Cure. So we should have a really good mid to late game TVP.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we got that Warp Prism that's going to be speeding around, trying to find little bits of harassment, especially with the Dark Shrine finishing out. Very, very nicely timed with the Dark Shrine, or the Warp Prism actually making its way over to the natural. Neeb's Observer gets spotted for a second by the scan, but it looks like it does manage to escape out of there alive for a moment. Army actually almost in position, and the missile turret almost well timed over here, but Neeb's going to make his way over to the main base, try and warp in a single DT. Oh, nice EMP combo to take it out before the warp-in finishes.
Might be worth remaking that Warp Prism, but maybe not immediately. Neeb is trying to add on those disruptors right now, which he does need to add complexity to his army. A lot of Protosses used to add in storms, but then EMP got pretty darn good. So they don't even bother anymore. So that double robo is entirely on disruptor production. Fifth base going to be killed, not canceled. As Neeb actually don't think he's ever really had vision off to the right. Cure has scanned the right corner here like 3 times, making sure there's no observer.
Yeah, he's like, how does he always have units there? And Neeb's just, it's like cuts to his natural where he's just leaving the units the entire game.
Yeah, like not even actually pay attention to him sometimes.
Yeah, well, we do have a 3-3 coming on up over here for Neeb in a second. So Cure's trying to make this little push in. He's hitting before that 3-3 finishes for Neeb. And Neeb's going to have a really nice upgrade advantage at that point, but not until then. So still another 20-30 seconds, and he's trying to force these engagements, but that is a lot of photon cannons.
That's a pretty well-defended fourth base. I don't know if you're actually going to be cracking that one, unless Neeb actually gets a little overconfident. So a little dependent on those stacked defenses as well as the disruptors, which are still really building in numbers. They're not quite there yet. Also, Neeb was just shy of having some good upgrades, finally finishing up his 3-2, as well as his DT Lake, which we'll be seeing sometime in the future.
I love the unit pathing. The Archon is like, I can't fit through. It's like, go around.
Yeah.
Low health Archon going to be leading the charge over here, and I think Neeb looking to try and get some damage. Stalkers blink forward, finding a couple of Vikings and a handful of these ghosts as well. Not too shabby. Some EMPs do go off at the very end before that ghost goes down. So Neeb's army gets softened up a little bit, but I mean, already he's finding some nice little pieces of damage. Yeah,
that was really good. That was good thinking there from Neeb. Well, I don't know. This is not so good thinking. Right through a choke into a concave of bio. I don't know about that one, but the previous one was a bit better. Cure is trying to get to his +3 attack. It's going to finish in just 10 seconds here, so it's okay for him to receive this engagement. And in fact, actually already moving on to Liberators, close to having +2. Makes me think that Neeb can't break this, but Neeb thinks he can at least control it. Oh no, he's going to try and break it.
Okay, blinks forward, snipes off 2 of the Liberators. I think there's only 1 left over now. The Liberators really do make it scary, but Neeb lost a lot of his Stalkers just to exchange for that, and there's more Liberators going to be coming on out. There's already 4 on the map, only 2 over here right now, but I really think this is going to be a tough position for Neeb to break. He's going to make a big DT run by... Oh, actually, if he keeps the whole army here and uses the DTs to snipe off that, I assume, PF at the top, yeah, that's going to be a good trade for him.
Classic Protoss maneuver, and unfortunately Cure is not prepared for it. One of the ways to try and handle this, besides immediately pulling SCVs and actually detecting it, yeah, that didn't work out, is having a Liberator over the top, but there wasn't even a missile turret, so that was unlikely to ever live.
Oh my god. Neeb's a god. Blinks on top of the Widow Mine to snipe it off so it doesn't kill anything. I love it.
He's still being so aggressive up front. Yeah, it's so aggressive. It just seems like it's not supposed to work for Neeb, but Neeb thinks, he keeps on saying, like, no, I think I can do it. I think I can do it. He is keeping the Liberator count a bit low, so Cure can't just depend on Liberators. If it was 6 Liberators already with that +2, that's never being broken, right? As long as they're sieged up. So, calling them is sometimes a good maneuver, but I think Neeb is really just trying to say, like, I have a big army right out here, so you better be paying attention, and then I'll kind of do whatever I want everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, he's even getting up the shield upgrades. He's getting up his +3 armor. DT's narrowly going to avoid a scan over here as he also tries to push in at this angle, getting a lot of the ghosts with that disruptor, continuing to do a lot of damage, but his army is EMP'd. He does not want to fight right now. He wants to control these DTs, finding a couple of the command centers, maybe going to be able to get one before it lifts off. Very, very good snipe off, but he also is going to have to worry about losing a handful of bases over here.
Finally, Kira gets something on the other side of the map. He's been waiting a while to do this, and it will be a Nexus down, perhaps even the top right Nexus if he knows about it, as he is focusing entirely on these 4 base defense. The DTs can't find too much more than they already did, but it looks like Kira is going to back away, but actually into the DTs a bit awkwardly. Does he have a scan? Is he going to run away from it? Kind of neither. Oh, the DT blink even aggressively. He's going to grab the Marauders and the Ghosts.
You can't run. It's gonna be a huge problem here. Cure is starting to dip a bit in supply now below the max out point, and Neeb still has a 2.5k bank right now. He's still running around with these DTs. I mean, I feel like one of the downfalls that sometimes Protoss players have is they go for these DT run-bys and then they do get caught. It's a very expensive loss, but Neeb has been able to come in with these DTs time and time again and continue to find damage. Gets hit by the EMP, but still makes it out alive.
You make an excellent point, though. A lot of bosses kind of get trigger happy. They're like, lol, I have 1,000, 2,000 minerals. Let's just throw DTs at the guy, and then end up being too expensive. But if they kill a base, that's great. If your main army kills another base, that's fantastic. Even grabbing the center tower while demolishing the SCV count on Kier's would-be 5th, and he still will escape once again.
Oh my god. I think he actually could have killed all those Marines right there. But can we get a shot of his Cure's 3rd right now? Because where is Cure actually mining? Like, that's what I want to know. Where is his income? Like, this is his 3rd. That's the only base those are the only bases actually mining right now.
I mean, I know the arrows pointing down are a little vague to you guys, but I believe that's a 1,000 difference of income mining, so it's much better for Neeb. And there is another attack forward. This time he thinks he's got it. The Liberators are a little late to sieging, but when they are sieged, they do a heck of a lot of damage. They have +2, so they're not going to be broken this time around. But Neeb has got the resources to make up for engagements like that.
Well, Zombie Girl, I will say one thing, and that's that as the resident mass DT experts, Liberators are in fact a hard counter to Dark Templars.
Yes.
So having those sieged up over there at that forward base is nice. It's going to defend against the DT harass, but those Liberators could also really help out in these fights right here, because you saw, like you were saying, how effective they can be in, you know, getting cost-efficient trades as Neeb tries to butt his head in here.
A Colossus is going to be found out by Bio, but the Stalkers take down the Liberators guarding that right section, which now means that they're on the backside of the Liberators, siege up for the choke, so they're not as helpful as they should be. Is Neeb actually going to do it right here, right now? It certainly seems that way.
Sniping off another one of the Liberators, blinking on forward. Neeb knows that he's got it as the SCVs pull in. Neeb already up 1-0. He's having a hard time in the group thus far, but this is going to be a critical victory for him. He's able to take this game and close it on out, as it looks like he's probably going to be able to. Neeb takes his first series victory.